Hey guys, Vrez here, back reviewing a new book today. It's called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Um, Notes on startups and how to build the future, or how to build the future. Actually, really interesting book. Incredible amount of insights in there. It's about business in general. I don't really read a lot of business books per se on how to start businesses, but this one was actually really interesting and I actually got a lot out of it. So let's go and get started. The concept of the book is that adding more of what we know takes the world from 1 to n, but creating something new, we go from 0 to 1. He kind of explains it in the concepts of horizontal progress, which is kind of taking some things that work somewhere and making them work everywhere. He likens the concept to globalization, whereas creating something new is vertical progress because you're going up, and he likens that to actually technology. He says that unless businesses invest in creating new things, i.e., creating new technology, companies will eventually fail, regardless of how much money they're making at the present moment or in the future. Throughout history, only technology has improved the world, and that the single most powerful pattern is that successful people find value in unexpected places. I thought that was really interesting. Basically, you can find value anywhere. You have to apply it to certain concepts to be able to make a business out of it. He says that globalization without new technology is unsustainable because of the finite resources that exist in the world today. And as long as we are competing over a finite amount of resources, basically globalization, raising everyone's standard of living, is eventually unsustainable because there's only a certain amount of resources to go around. Whereas new technology, if we create that, then we can make people's lives easier by making lives more efficient. He's saying that new technology is required to keep improving the world, which comes from startups, because startups are usually the ventures that make it happen. They're the ones who put resources together and put people together and make new technology and make new inventions and new ideas happen. He said that usually startups are really small, and that allows for new thinking. And you need new thinking because you need to tackle existing problems with new ways of thinking and new ways of looking at them. He said that the goal is to question the status quo and rethink business from scratch, not to think about old ideas in old ways, but in new ways. He talks about that the dot-com crash in the early 2000s made people gun shy to start new tech ventures, and to just keep thinking for yourself and keep moving forward and not worry about some of the old paradigms that were created from that crash and that dot-com bust. In chapter 3, he talks about the concept that competition, when it's done perfectly, it actually reduces profit down to zero because everybody's competing for the same market. And so what that does is it eventually brings the price down to the point where no one's making any money. Whereas a monopoly stands alone and sets its own prices. I think of Google in this scenario. A monopoly, in the sense that he's using it in the book, is not necessarily something that has no competition whatsoever, but it is a company that is so good at what it does that no other company comes close to even matching it or reaching its effects. He's saying, don't build a business that can't be set apart in some fundamental way. Don't create something that basically anyone else can do, or that is just a small little change on what exists, but be radically different in a way that people haven't even thought of yet. He's saying monopolies can afford to do more research and development and thereby drive innovation and new technology because they make more money than businesses who are competing with each other all the time. And they have a little bit more time to think about making new ideas, whereas businesses who are constantly in competition, they're always thinking about the bottom line and they can't stop to think about ways of generating new revenue and new ideas. He's saying that every business is successful to the extent that it does something others can't. Chapter 4, he talks about the fact that we are too obsessed as a society with the concept of competition, and that it actually harms us and stifles our growth as individuals and as a society as a whole. Because most people are infighting with each other and they're arguing about how to do things, fighting over minute and inconsequential things, whereas the big picture kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And he's saying it's better to join forces and keep creating new things than it is to fight to the death with somebody. In chapter 5, he says that the most important question a business should ask itself is, will this business still be around in a decade? And that don't just focus on the near-term growth, but long-term prospects. Become a monopoly if you can. And all monopolies share the following characteristics. They all have proprietary technology, they all have network effects, they have economies of scale, and they have branding. In the proprietary technology category, he's saying that you need to be 10x better, 10 times better in your technology, not just 2 or 3 times better, because you don't have enough of a change in the product or in the service if you're only just a couple times better, and you don't really get people's attention that much to make them buy from you as opposed to someone already in the marketplace providing that service or that product. In network effects, he's talking about the concept that a product becomes more useful as people use it. And Facebook comes to mind in this scenario when it wasn't really valuable until people started catching on and started using it on a major scale, and thousands of people started to sign up. That's when it became more valuable, not when it was just a couple hundred people operating out of a dorm room. Economies of scale refer to the concept that businesses get stronger as they get bigger because a product cost can be spread out over more sales. And then in branding, it needs to be really compelling. And he brings up Apple in this example, where the design of all their products and the branding is very intentional, and it's done to almost to a point of obsession, and that's why it's so compelling. He's saying to always start small with a small market, and that the perfect target market is a small group of particular people concentrated together that very few people or no one is serving. He says to expand deliberately, not too fast, and focus on creation, not on copying or improving an existing product. In chapter 6, he talks about definite versus indefinite, and he's referring to a belief that the future can either be known or not known, and whether it should be planned for or not. He's saying that you need to strive to be great at something substantive, to be a monopoly of one rather than mediocre at many things. And this brings to mind the concept of a jack of all trades, master of none, and that it's better to be really good at one thing than just kind of average at many things. Kind of like what Bruce Lee said, that he fears the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times rather than a man who practiced 10,000 kicks one time. And that really your power is in focusing and concentrating on a specific area and becoming an expert at it. He's saying in the world today, arguing over process or how to do things has become a way to avoid making concrete plans for a better future. And a golden nugget that I actually liked was that he said, every great entrepreneur is first and foremost a designer. I thought that was really cool, because I think it kind of encapsulates the fact that to really have a product and a service that you really are passionate about, you've thought about it a lot, and you've kind of narrowed it down, and you've whittled it down to its most essential aspects. Basically brought it down to its bare bones, to the point where you can make it look good even though it's very simple and basic. He's saying that a startup is the largest endeavor you can have definite mastery over and use it to change the world. I thought that was really cool, because there's not many places in life now where we can actually make a big difference. It's hard, he's saying, to get into politics and make a big change, or get into certain areas of academia or science that can make a big change. But if you actually create a company that focuses on one particular area and making new technology, then you can actually change the world. And that was actually really cool. And a small group of people can do it. In chapter 7, he's talking about the power law is the law of the universe. And he's referring to the 80-20 rule, that the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto made famous, which basically says that a small few radically outstrip all rivals, or the small percentage, 20%, accounts for the 80% of the results. He's saying that only invest in companies with the potential to out-earn all others in a fund or in a portfolio. Don't spread out your money or your efforts or your energies into many different companies, but focus on those that are actually going to be able to out-earn and all the others. He's saying also that it's difficult to know which companies will outperform the rest because of exponential growth. It doesn't happen, if at all, for many years. So you have to really research those companies, and you kind of have to take an educated guess sometimes on certain things. A main insight that I really had when reading the book is he was saying that everyone is actually an investor because of the time you spend doing something, hoping it will give you a return in the future. I found this really relevant to everyday life, whether it's buying a car, or whether it's starting a career or getting into a relationship, or any kind of action you're doing on a daily basis. You're putting in energy, you're putting in time, you're putting in effort, and you're putting in resources with the expectation or the hope that you're going to get a return later on down the road. So everyone should look at life and at everything they're doing with an investor's mindset, from an investment standpoint, to try to make a return on your investment. He's saying you can't diversify your life or your investment portfolio because the power law proves that your greatest results will come from focusing on the one thing that can generate the biggest returns. So if you try to diversify too much, you're going to spread out your energies. You're not going to be able to focus your energies and provide the amount of results and bang that you're going to need to make a big return. His advice along those lines are to focus relentlessly on something that you're good at doing, but before doing that, think hard about whether it'll be valuable in the future. So you don't waste your time going down this long road of effort and energy spent where it's going to be obsolete, or it's going to be replaced in the future sometime. Chapter 8 is called Secrets, and he says that not everything in the world has been discovered, and that there are still secrets to find out if we look for them. When thinking to build a company, ask yourself, what secrets is nature not telling you, and what secrets are people not telling you? And this could be the area that you could start a business around. So that's kind of a moment to think about. In chapter 9, he talks about the beginnings are crucial of every venture that you start. That if it's not done right, it's hard to change later. He said that founders need to have a synergy with each other, and they need to share some sort of a prehistory or relationship before starting a company together, because so much pressure put on a company that if the people don't have a good relationship, working relationship, before they start, then the pressure will just kind of crush them, and it'll lead to conflict, and it'll break down, and the business will fall apart. He's saying that all employees, investors, and founders should be incentivized to work for the long-term success of the company and not just focus on short-term gains. And that all people involved with the company should be in alignment with the company's goals. And along those lines, he says, give equity for compensation rather than cash, because it focuses on future value of the company. And that a company maintains its beginning spark and thus its value as long as it's creating new things. Once it stops doing that, it starts to lose its edge. So in this chapter, he's talking about everybody needs to be on board. Everyone needs to be doing a specific task, and they all need to be focused on the strength and the success of the business and the long-term prospects of the business, not looking after their own short-term gains, like how much money can they make or how can they get in and out really quick. Everyone has to share the same ethos and the same way of thinking about the business. In chapter 10, he talks about creating a cult in the sense of a business of people who believe very strongly in the same mission. Never outsource recruiting, and have each person do one thing, which reduces conflict, because no one's bickering over each other's jobs or looking to get one up over the other on promotions or things like that. But it actually regiments people onto what they need to do, and it clarifies each person's role in the company. And I can actually relate to that in my own personal life when I've worked in companies in the past, when people are trying to do different jobs or they get resentful that they're doing more work than other people, they're doing other people's jobs. It's actually really helpful to just have one specific area, and it makes it easier for the managers to see whether the work is done properly and for one person to get expertise in one particular area. In chapter 11, he's talking about using sales to sell a product is just as important as the quality of the product itself, and that you need to create a strong distribution plan, making sure that customer lifetime value exceeds the customer acquisition cost. And that way it'll justify itself by, if you're going to be making a certain amount of money from a customer over the course of your relationship with that customer, it's got to be more than it costs to actually acquire a new customer. He's saying don't try to compete with bigger companies in their advertising budgets as a startup, and that on marketing, go viral if you can by dominating the most important segment of a market, and that you need to have a public relations strategy and sell your company to the media, your employees, and investors, and we're all selling something at any point in time. In chapter 12, he's talking about man and machine, and he's saying that the most valuable businesses of the future will seek to empower people rather than replace them with machines. And since machines and humans are categorically different with different skills and purposes, machines will complement humans in their tasks and not replace them. So people don't need to worry about robots taking over their jobs and things like that. But he says that we still need humans to make the actionable insights from the data patterns that are derived from the machines. So there's certain things, certain crucial elements and decisions that people still need to make, and that the skill set that robots or machines are created for are mostly data collection and analysis, but the people still have to make those decisions on what they do with that data and how it's used. Chapter 13, he talks about there are 7 questions every business must answer. It's at page 154. Yeah, he says that doing something different is what's truly good for society, not many companies all going after the same product. And that Tesla successfully answered all 7 questions. He's saying any new technology you create needs to be 10 times better than existing technology. And if it's only 2 or 3 times better, it's not enough to get people excited and generate sales. Another golden nugget that I found from this chapter was that the creation of new value is the most important task in business. It cannot be reduced to a formula and applied by professionals. It's more of an art form. And for this, he gave the example of Apple, where when Steve Jobs left, a bunch of bankers and professionals had come in to run the company, and they didn't focus on new technology and creating, inventing new items and new products, and basically it was on the brink of bankruptcy until he came back in and turned the company around and brought in the iPod and the iPad and the iPhone, and the company went basically through the roof in valuation and became the most valuable company in the world. In chapter 14, he talks about founders and how we need them, and they often share extreme personality traits, and they're often idiosyncratic, not seem strange or extreme or a little weird. That we should be more tolerant of them, because someone who is really passionate about their message and their business and what they want to create in the world, they can bring out the best work in people. They can inspire strong personal loyalty. They can make authoritative decisions and plan ahead for decades, and that they can achieve more than giving everyone equal roles and being a more democratic structure. But also that society needs scapegoats, and often that when things go wrong, we pin it on the founders. So that's also kind of a caveat to be aware of. He concludes by saying whether the future will be more of the same or exponentially better will be up to us, and we can't take anything for granted, but the most essential first step is to think for ourselves. I really like that, and I couldn't agree more. My main takeaway from this book was that to keep being creative and keep inventing new things, keep thinking of new ways to change and improve existing technology for the benefit of humanity, and keep that would make people's lives easier and happier. And that if you're looking to start a company that will change the world, definitely buy this book and incorporate the insights and the concepts that he teaches in there, because I think they're really, really powerful, and they're very helpful for someone who's looking to make a dent in the world. He has a really good track record. He was the co-founder of PayPal and Palantir Technologies. A lot of the guys that he worked with at PayPal have gone on to start their other really successful ventures. So he has a really strong background, a very impressive experience, and personal knowledge of very intimate details of business in the working world. So I think he's really someone to pay attention to and to listen to his ideas. That's it. If you guys have read this book, let me know in the comments below what your impressions were of it, what you thought about it. If you guys like that book review, let me know some other books that you guys want me to read and review. And if you want to watch some of my other videos, you can click here where I show some other reviews and other books that I've read.